book Sustainable Wellness is coming out in about a month, and we're real excited to get it out there. It came about after a lot of work with, started with cancer patients and physicians, basically people that have similar experiences, and for a long time my co-author Heather Reed and I were asked to come up with something that would document and allow for people that have been to the retreats and the groups to keep having that type of information available. And so that's why we ended up writing the book, and the time has come for it to come out. So I've always been a naive idealist. I think I'm always a little bit less naive and idealistic today than I was yesterday, but I still remain a naive idealist. And when I was thinking about going into medicine, I really felt like medicine for me was a calling, and it just made sense that the idea of the old-time country doctor that was always involved in people's lives wasn't just somebody that would come and fix things. It was somebody that was involved in the whole person. And so I really felt like and thought that that's what medicine was all about, and went to medical school and through training, and very little of medical training was devoted to that, which made me even more hungry for it. And so really spent a good bit of time and effort trying to make sure that I was going to be able to be that type of doctor, and basically educated myself on various forms of complementary medicine and whole person type medicine when I was in medical school and residency. And then I was very fortunate to be involved in Dr. Andrew Weil's program for integrated medicine when they first opened it up to a distance learning type of format, and went through that process and graduated in 2002. And as a part of that fellowship experience, which was about 40 physicians from all around the country that were working on that type of, learning that type of approach, I ran into an organization called Commonweal. And Commonweal had made a name for itself by going through Bill Moyer's program that was looking at healing and medicine and the healing arts in medicine. And what they did was a profile on Commonweal, because they had a lot of cancer patients that went out to this small town in California right on the Pacific coast called Bolinas. And they spent about a week out there just learning ways to care for themselves, going on retreats. And what they found is that some of these people had remarkable changes in their medical problems, and actually began outperforming the statistics just from that small intervention. And so I had been a big fan and big friends with a gentleman named Bernie Siegel, who wrote a book called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And that was I was first exposed to that book in my first year of medical school, which is probably why I stayed in medicine, because he basically showed that it was possible to be more than just a scientist or a technician, that it was possible to be a whole person and work with a whole person, and to kind of do that in relationship. And so Commonweal had a big rush of individuals that wanted to do their retreats after this Bill Moyer's exposure. And so they started teaching physicians how to run retreats for cancer patients and for other physicians. And they didn't limit it to physician facilitators. You could have a nonprofit organization, or really anyone could go and learn how to be a facilitator. And so I applied for that, and was very fortunate to go out to Commonweal several times to learn how to facilitate groups for cancer patients, as well as to learn how to facilitate groups for physicians. And about that time in the state of Georgia, we had an organization called the Georgia Cancer Coalition. And this was the brainchild of multiple people in the state of Georgia at that time, including a gentleman called, his name was Hamilton Jordan, who was affiliated with Jimmy Carter when he was president. And Hamilton ended up developing cancer. And he did a ton of research and really was a very responsible participant in looking at trying to care for himself through the process. And so he felt like when the state got this big tobacco tax refund, that the money shouldn't just be spent on making the state budget come up whole, but that it should be used in a way to basically target the disease that the defective product of cigarettes had caused the most of, which arguably is cancer. And so they formed this Georgia Cancer Coalition with those state tobacco tax dollars as a way of trying to make sure that cancer care in the state of Georgia was the state of the art. And so as a part of that, this fit in very nicely our philosophy with regards to treating the whole person. Back then it was still a little bit on the edge or on the fringe. And so we began developing a retreat center and began really earnestly developing our retreat processes here in the state of Georgia. And since that time, after we started doing retreats, we've developed and kind of broadened our scope with regards to supportive care for the whole person to include groups and patient navigation as a part of this nonprofit Cancer Navigators, as a way not just to address people's needs with regards to their mental, emotional, spiritual type needs and helping to see things in a new way such that they can adopt healthy lifestyle changes, but also trying to help folks that have very little in the way of access to care and have problems with getting what they need just to stay alive, just to eat and get medications and get therapy. So as we went along and worked with these folks in retreat and in groups, we were persistently asked to put something in writing to serve as a method to do this work with more people, and so that's what finally brought up the book. The book is unique in that it really isn't like an instructional manual. It's not something that's going to give you a magic formula to follow that is going to be the same for every single individual that reads it. It's really more of a guide on a journey, and that journey leads to the point that you find what your own individual strengths and weaknesses are, understand where you are, who you are, where you came from, so then you can figure out where you want to go, and ultimately how you get there is something that kind of springs up from who you are and where you want to go and where you've been. And so change ends up happening in areas of life that we typically see things put out there in the literature every January, for example. There's a book that comes out that says, hey, this is the way to lose weight, to have flat abs, to be more relaxed, to get in touch with your spirit, to find this, that, or the other thing. And typically February comes along and all those things kind of fade away. And so the question is, how do we make that sustainable? How do we make it to something that an individual does, but also springs from who an individual is? And so that ultimately is the difference between sustainable wellness and a kind of fad diet or fad health type, self-help type of approach. This is something that really we hope will help people to have who they are drive what they do in a way that's sustainable and that is leads them to a state of balance with both what's going on internally with inside themselves as well as what's going on externally and the challenges they need to meet.